Hi, I'm Brian. I'm going to talk about how to get the water out of the tank on your Can-Am four-wheeler. This is for the older ones that are about 03 to 08, give or take. If it's carbureted, you probably know because it'll have this switch that says on, off, reserve. That's one real telltale way to know. Also, if you have a gas gauge, like a digital gas gauge, it's probably fuel injected. This isn't going to work. Best bet then is to just put a line directly into the tank, which might be a good idea anyway, but we like to just get a tutorial on how this system works anyway. So here it is. On your older bikes, there's a gravity feed system. So you got fuel here, you get a bunch of water in. The water's heavier than the fuel, it'll go to the bottom. And you had a little thing that stuck up in the tank, so stuck up. So this would be the on position, this higher straw, and then the lower position would be your reserve. And you just switch your thing, same thing, you know, on, off, reserve. So on the Can-Ams, you've got a fuel tank and then you got two lines coming out of the tank. You got an on position line and a reserve position line. Reserve is, you know, if you suck out till this one's empty, you'd have enough to get home. Or, you know, like, hey dummy, you're about out of gas, you've been having too much fun. So that's the way the system works, technically. So basically, if you get water in the fuel, you can suck it out directly. It's a little bit messy. There's a cleaner way to do it or not, I don't know. This is the way I chose to do it. You got the two lines that go up to here, so you got three lines going in. You got one that's being used per time, and then the other one goes up to a vacuum operated pump that's under the tank area, like basically where your tank would be. You've got a pump, and you've got a vacuum line that goes to here. It uses Venturi vacuum, you know, sucking off between the carburetor and the engine. This would be a little bit off. This goes to engine, to motor. This is where all the fuel and air gets sucked in. So you got a vacuum supply pump line that goes in there, and then it goes through here and then into the carburetor. This is where you want to unclamp it if you're going to do it this way. I always, you know, the old school way, because I'm old school, I did it this way instead of just putting a hose right into the tank. That's probably the best way to go. But the old school way was you just take off this line, put it in a jar, and turn it to reserve, and just watch the jar until you start getting fuel instead of water. What wound up happening is I wound up taking the whole thing apart and doing it through the driver's side, because this is where the best clamp was. This was like a CV axle clamp or a heat shrink or whatever. That's a pain in the neck to get connected properly, and because it has to vacuum pump through this, you don't want any leaks here. So I just undid the clamp here. It was a lot easier, but I had to do a lot more tear down to do it. And then I thought I could just get it to flow or just pressurize it with the air compressor, so you have pressure pushing down just like I fill gear oil cases with, you know, differential or whatnot. Wouldn't work. I had to pull it with the vacuum pump through this line. If I'd have known that to begin with, I'd probably just stick a line directly down in here, but it's a good education. And if you're ever on the trail and you need to know how to siphon gas, siphon it from the tank, you'll know to not do it this way. This way is more of a pain. And you have to have the bike running to get this thing to pump. So it's kind of a good little piece of information. Enjoy. Let's go to the bike. Today I'm working on a 2005 Can-Am or Bombardier, depending on if they're figured out that this name doesn't sell. Outlander XT. This is a 400 high output. The gas cap was missing, and it was out in the rain for a week, and it went down the highway with the cap in the off position. As a result, there's a lot of water in this tank, so we need to get it out. Just get in the back of this seat, and there's a latch. In the latch, you have to grab hold of it and roll it this way. So we'll roll the latch forward. It's going to be kind of the Scotty Kilmer edition, just real quick and dirty and highly staged. So we'll set our seat aside. Well, that cover's really doing its job, isn't it? The next thing you want to do is pop undone these body fasteners here and here. Pull these two screws, rock this up, rock it down. They got a body fastener that makes it really hard to get that one out, so just leave it in. Unbuckle your air filter unit, your box. And this thing's going to be stuck in there. It's not going to want to go anywhere. Undo the clamp for your air filter. Pull out the fastener here. It's a Torx T25 and a 10mm nut. So you've got one of those here, and then you have two more here. You have to fight with this wire harness to get to them. There's going to be one here and one here that hold this box in. And then we're going to go around to the other side. We're going to pop this body fastener undone. We're going to pop this one, and then you don't really have to do the bottom one, but you can. And then just rotate it down. It's going to make it a lot easier when you go to put it back together. From this side, there's a hose clear up underneath the wiring. You can see the hose right here. It goes from the carburetor, it makes a 90-degree turn and goes to the air filter box. That's your breather filter. It's got a funky chicken clip in there. So we've already pulled these two bolts out of the top, 10mm. Lift that up and pull this assembly back. It's going to have to burp off of the carburetor. Don't mess with the settings on this, just trust me, it just slips on and off, no problem. It's just right to not let dirt in but be able to service. We've also got this little hose on this side that you got to pull too, but it's like right behind the exhaust, so pretty much you get it to here and then pop it off. That's easy, huh? Let's talk about the setup that we have here. This is where the gas and the water go in. Only supposed to have gas, just for people who are doubting. This line right here is the on position. On your little fuel selector thing, you've got off for if you're hauling it. You got reserve for when you run out of gas and you need to get back to where you're going. Just kind of heads up, check your gauge, and then the on position. So this hose goes to the on position. The hose back here that's lower down the tank is the reserve position. So you've got two lines coming out of the tank. And we follow these lines and they duck underneath and they come up to this valve. On the valve it's labeled Taiwan. It also says reserve on this front one. There we go. Reserve and out. So the other side would be on, and then they go back up underneath to this vacuum pump. You can see there's three hoses going into it. There's one going in the back, which is the out hose, and then there's one hose that goes to vacuum to the boot. You see that red clamp down there? That's what powers the pump, and then what goes to the carburetor is this line here. Don't run the vehicle. If you know that there's water in the tank, it's better to just tear into it, because once the water gets into the carburetor, it's harder to get it out of the carburetor. There's a little drain on the bottom. You see this screw right here, and then there's a little black hose. You'll see it because there'll be a stain all around it. You can drain it out there, but if you drain that, it doesn't help you at all to get the water out of the tank, because there's that pump that kind of acts as a blockage in the system. So what you can do is you can use the vacuum pump and just crank it over and over and over and burn up your starter and melt the wire going to it, which is back here. Or the other thing you can do is just take off the hose that says out from the other side that goes from here, and then use it as an evacuation tank like this. Either one would work great. Another thing that you could do is siphon it, get the hose that comes out of the reserve. You want the reserve because that's the lowest down. Water's heavier than fuel, so the water's in the bottom of the tank. If you go to start it, like I say, you'll have to worry about getting the water out of the carburetor, and then you'll also have to worry about getting it out of the cylinders. If you've already gone that far, here's where your spark plug is here. You gotta pull the spark plug and clean it, dry it, and then blast that out with compressed air, or cycle the key, you know, like crank it so it pushes it out. It's not fun, but it's doable. It's a lot less work to just get the water out. Come around to this side and show you where that hose is that goes into the back of the vacuum pump. It's nothing on this is easy to get it into. In case you're wondering how I do it, I use a pair of 90-degree needle nose pliers, and these enable you to be able to grab the clamp. This isn't the hose we're working on, this is just to show you. And you can squeeze it, and then you can take the pliers, loosen the hose up, and then take it sideways and push it like that. These are a great tool for this application. We'll run this hose back the other side to a container. I've got the fuel turned off for now so that I don't have any spills. We'll come around to this side. I got to use this pump. It's just not coming by pressing it, pressurizing the tank to get it to push, and it's just not pushing. See the fuel's coming through. It's funny is when you do fuels and things like this, it gets cold. I mean, you have low pressure, you have something that evaporates really rapidly. Whenever you have a quick pressure drop, it causes it to be, that's how your air conditioning system works. It's just not a flammable thing. It's not like gasoline. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see it splashing through. It's pulling the water and the fuel through. Getting little flashes of fuel in with the water. What a mess. If you're looking back here, you can see that's the gas tank. That's where you fill it. Why not just put a drain in the bottom? Well, you got this pan under the bottom here that holds the tank, and then the tank, it would be a lot of work, and I just don't have time to do that today. The other thing is just a risk of it coming undone, but it'd be awesome to have a drain. That way you could drain a little gas and fuel your buddy. Just use a water bottle or Gatorade bottle. Get all the water out of it, of course, but the sugar, you don't want sugar in your tank. But that way you'd be able to transfer fuel, drain water. All this would be a lot easier if there's just a little drain in the bottom of the tank. So I have the suction turned off. I'm going to take a sample of this and see what it looks like. Not easy to get out of here though, because it's under vacuum. It's ready to rock, kind of like a siphon. So I'm filling up a jar, just siphon style. Nice thing about this, once you get it sucking, it'll just go. I'm going to fill up a jar about halfway full, get a decent sample size, and see where we're at. I think we got all the water. I'm looking at the side of the tank here, and you've got this little gauge, and it's got just a little over 2 1/4 gallons in there, so I don't think we got more water than that. The tank's not that big. Somehow, looking at the camera, I didn't spill from here. That's pretty good. So here's a spray bottle. I'm going to just pour water into this gasoline. So you can see, for one, it gets really milky. You see it's not as clear as it used to be. And then number two, there's a real obvious line in the bottom of it. Let's get sideways to this thing. So this is the water. It's like the water that was at the bottom of the tank. And then there's a little bit that's kind of in suspension. They separate over time, so you don't want to jostle the vehicle a lot when you're doing this. You want to let it sit for a little while and then pull out from the bottom. That's what we're doing. I hope this is helpful to you. Please subscribe, click thumbs up, comment, whatever you gotta do, share it, and help other people to see it. That would be great. Thanks for watching. So if you're gonna take my advice about getting this back on without tightening and loosening this, you better have some of this silicone spray, or at least get it wet with gas. Be sure to, like I say, make sure you have a well-ventilated work area, get a fan going, get a door open, and basically don't breathe this stuff. It's going to kill your brain cells. It's going to make your life a lot harder. Life's way harder if you're stupid. So don't kill your brain cells. Make sure you're ventilated. Wear eye protection. Safety gloves are great. And have a fire extinguisher handy. You can have a fire extinguisher here, another one over here. Just be smart, you know. Have one on the floor next to you, that sort of thing. So we just wiggle this back on. You can use the same trick to get that hose on the back side back in right there. As for the other side hose, you shouldn't need it too much. That's the tricky stuff of getting this stuff back together. If you know those secrets, you're gonna be okay. I've got the gas tank filled back up with good fuel. And don't forget this step. This is the ISO heat injector cleaner. Water remover is what we're after, that right there. Remember how the fuel in the jar was all cloudy after I poured water into it? A little bit of that cloudiness is water that's still in there. So you want to remember to take care of that, because that can settle back out and create issues. But not if you do this. We're good. Thank you for watching this video. Appreciate you guys being along. Appreciate any comments that you have. If you have something you want to say it in the comments. No holds bar. If you've been like, maybe I should say it, maybe I shouldn't, just go for it.
Oh, don't. Oh, I didn't know you were filming.
Yeah. That was awesome. Oh, behave.
No, tired hands. Oh.
We good? Good.